All right, let me continue along this vector. What P&G does has always done, and when we do this well, we've always succeeded, is have a portfolio of brands that provides daily use to consumers where performance drives brand choice. It is very important each one of these vectors is true. P&G went through a portfolio transformation a few years back when I think we had overextended our portfolio. And by doing that portfolio transformation, it has served us well. I'll give you an example that I personally led when I was in India on a similar portfolio transformation to make this point. So what you should expect is each one of this in the subsequent slides, I will be double clicking, right? So I'm going to give you an example of portfolio choices, but essentially we win when we have superiority, right? So that's the core vector that we have. We have 5 vectors of superiority that we live by. And what we've realized is it's not important because historically we've been very strong on product superiority, but we've realized that's not sufficient, right? And that's why we call it now the 5 vectors of superiority. The first vector of superiority is product. I won't belabor this. I think the guard example that I offered you in India is exactly to that point. When we offer superior propositions to consumers, in this case, a proposition that was not just meeting the consumer need, but better than the relative offering that they had, which would be double-edged razors, then consumers are willing to invest in these products in order to improve their lives, right? And these products, where we were offering at an outlay of 20 cents, and it's about the same that we are offering today, right? So that is what we call as irresistibly superior product, right? The second thing, and A.G. Lafley, one of our former CEOs, said it well, is packaging. In the last 15, 20 years, we've realized the importance of packaging because this is how the consumers interact with us even before he or she uses the product, right? So it's incredibly important that packaging offers and speaks to them, and we call it the first moment of truth. It needs to say who we are or who the brand is, what does the brand do for you, and what specific unmet need of the consumer does it address. Let's take H&S, right? Head and Shoulders. It will normally say upfront, it's dandruff-free. So it's very clear that's the unmet consumer need that it's trying to solve, okay? Our communication is insight-driven, right? So going back to guard razors to sort of close the loop, the insight there were nicks and cuts that the Indian male consumer was facing when they were shaving with double edge, and they didn't have the environment where they could rely on electricity or running water. So the communication which we developed on TV media addressed that need upfront. It showed somebody shaving in one hand with the ease of shaving, showing the comfort in shaving, showing that there are no nicks and cuts, set up in an environment that resonated with what we call is a semi-urban consumer, right? So it needs to be insight-driven and address and be able to resonate to that consumer. As far as our retail partners are concerned, we believe in having joint business plans that are win-win, because ultimately for us, we will win only if our customers and our partners win as well. And last but not the least is value. Let me just talk on the value point a little bit, because value often gets confused with being the cheapest offering. And especially it gets confused when you're talking to consumers in parts of the world that I serve here, which is many of the developing markets. That's actually not true. It needs to meet the outlay of these consumers because very often they can't afford higher level outlays. So if you're selling Ariel laundry, she may want a sachet, which is a small single-use product, as opposed to buying big bags, right? Because they normally get weekly salaries, so it's easier for her to consume in sachets, right? But I met a consumer in Africa, and that really, she summarized it better than I can. What she said is, I can only afford Ariel. So I asked her, what do you mean? There are cheaper detergents available. Why don't you go for it? He said, it's not about being cheap. Those detergents don't consistently deliver the cleaning that's required, and I can't afford them to fail. I can buy only one laundry detergent, and I need to buy Ariel because I trust that Ariel will work. So, and that's why I'm willing to invest in Ariel. So it's important for her that in her laundry needs, we are able to deliver performance and stain removal, and we need to make sure we deliver it in that single use. So it needs to deliver on that efficacy, and it needs to be in a form that she can purchase, which is, as I said, a sachet form. So I just want to address that value, while often equated to price, it's a mistake to equate it to being cheap. Okay? Then there are a few things that we need to enable to make this strategy come alive. Productivity needs to be a way of life. If you think in the regions that we operate, it's high inflation, it's typically devaluation trails inflation, and sometimes it's cumulative. It's important that we constantly look for efficiencies across all the P&L line items, and I don't think we will ever see the end to productivity. Productivity is about doing more with less. Productivity is about being more focused, and it's about working through inefficiencies in the system. For instance, we are now figuring out it's not always needed to put fancy containers to ship products. Caseless containers can work. This is more sustainable for the environment and eliminates costs that the consumer should not be bearing, right? Then the next element is constructive disruption. Our current CEO, David Taylor, offers a great insight here. It's important that the change within P&G is faster than the change outside. Otherwise, just because we survived and thrived and won for 175 years does not give us the right to win for the next year. We need to constantly evolve. And I'll try and combine this with the focused and agile organization as I go in my subsequent slides. And one of the organizational transformations that P&G did. But ultimately, that is everything. All the strategy is effective only with an organization that's both equipped and enabled to execute it with excellence day in and day out. And I'll speak to it in subsequent slides with an example that P&G just went through. I'll pause here, Josh, to see whether there are other questions, or do you want me to move forward at this point? Okay, thank you. All right, I want to walk you through this example. So when I was in India, we've had growing top line. That top line was not necessarily translating to consistent bottom line performance. I remind you of the jingle that John said, top line without bottom line is a waste of time. And we had way too many good people in India to be wasting our time, right? So this is a portfolio transformation which we did. And again, quoting John, when he spoke this about the external stakeholders, he said, with this transformation, the top line means something because it's translating to meaningful bottom line. So what we did is we categorized the portfolio into three vectors. What does strategic means? What does a winning portfolio means? A winning portfolio simply means it's delivering on the 5 vectors of superiority, and we know we are able to make money, right? So that's the set of brands we want to stay invested. We want to continue to grow because we'll be able to continue to upgrade, provide innovation, continue to win externally, and return good money to our shareholders. Then there are the set of portfolio choices where we either did not have superiority or we did not see line of sight to financial attractiveness, or possibly both. Those we made the tough, but in some ways the easy decision to exit. Because if you don't have line of sight, the best thing you can do to the organization is just walk away from it, because when you belabor it, you're putting some precious resources behind it who could instead go against the strategic parts of the business to be able to grow top line, bottom line, and serve our consumers. Then there was a set of portfolio where we felt we could either address the portfolio needs or we could get to the financial attractiveness without losing our ability to win by making choices in terms of productivity. And then over a period of 2 years, we made sure that we actually fixed those businesses, so to speak, and they entered our strategic portfolio. This portfolio transformation delivered a significant bottom line accretion. And in 2 years, we started getting back to top line growth again, winning externally while delivering margins that were attractive to our stakeholders as well. So good portfolio transformation is one that focuses the organization on businesses where we have the right to win and where we have the ability to translate it to attractive financials. And when we do that, we always, and we work through the transition, that's painful because in a couple of years, you need to be able to sunset some of these products. But when you come out of it, it sets us up for success over the midterm by delivering top line that's bottom line accretive.